Madam Chair, we are recording and streaming live on YouTube. You may begin when you're ready.
All right, welcome and good morning, Metro Plan Orlando TSMO meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. My name is Christina Colon. I'll be chairing the meeting today. This meeting is in person. It's important for all TSMO members to attend our meetings in person. So all committee members are asked to be present in the Metro Plan Orlando boardroom for us to have a quorum. Members of the public will still be able to participate virtually, and we encourage them to do so. There are 2 public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public attending in person who want to speak need to fill out a comment card and give it to Rachel. Those attending on Zoom who want to speak can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen. We also accept comments by email and phone message before the meeting. At this time, I'll recognize Mr. Eric Hill, Metro Plan Orlando staff, for an agenda review.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, and good morning, committee members in the room with us and online. We have a light agenda this morning, and so I won't hold you up too much, but a few things. You should have received a email from Slade Downs of our staff on the TIP and PPL. He's asking for your comments on that by June the 5th. Also, at your place, you will find a Safe, Smarter Future. Or if you're looking at the back of it, it says Journey to 2050. This is our marketing piece for our update of our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And it is one of the documents that, regardless of how you pick it up, you're still reading it correctly because it has no back cover. I mean, that is really technology, is ingenuity. So that's that. Also, you see Tip Tuesdays. This is an open house, so to speak, on us rolling out the tip. And if you're available, there's to attend. There's one in each county. Certainly a county near you. So please consider attending that. Also, I mentioned this last month, but June 19th, our office will be closed. And it's not in honor of my birthday. We have already done that, okay? And you all, I thank you, you're welcome, okay? But it is honor of the end of indentured servitude here in these United States. And before we go to the safety moment, I just want to recognize one of our staff, Marianne Horn, this lovely lady. Many of you have worked with her, interacted with her, but Marianne is retiring from Metro Plan Orlando after 15 wonderful years. So she is, I think, online. She's not here today, but her last day is June 12th. If anyone is here between now and June 12th, if you see Marianne, please congratulate her, because as we at some point will all recognize that it's time for us to move our life and take another journey within our lives. And so Marianne is fortunate enough to do that. So congratulations to her. And so at this time, Madam Chair, I want to recognize Mr. Mike Wilson for the safety moment.
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about seat belts again. I think we did it this time last year. But in talking about seat belts and particularly fatalities, because that's where we really see the impact, it's important to think about how that interacts with impairment, because what we've seen, if you recall from a couple safety moments back, we've seen a big drop in impaired driving crashes, which is a great thing. So when we're looking at fatalities, we have to keep that correlation in mind. So overall, we saw a drop in unrestrained drivers if we compare the last 3 years to years 2016 through 18. And even better, drop of more than 50% of unrestrained passengers. And then doing even better yet with those under 18. But you notice that it's the impaired drivers, unrestrained impaired drivers, where we had a big drop, while the unrestrained, unimpaired, sober drivers actually increased. So, so really the drop in unrestrained drivers is due to less impaired driving, less drunk driving. So we still have some work to do when it comes to getting people to buckle up. And what I saw in the data was that it was the younger drivers who, while they actually had the big drop in impaired driving, they're not buckling up like they should. So let's get the message out to everybody, but especially those younger drivers, that they need to buckle up so that the EMTs don't have to buckle them onto one of these. That concludes my safety moment. Be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mike? I'm not sure when it starts, but it's the end of the school year and graduations and all that happening, and it's a wonderful time. But I think also, if I recall correctly, coming up is kind of what's called the 100 deadliest days of summer for teens and young adults. And some of that information you just showed about where the increase was kind of makes me think ahead to that as well. And just encouraging our graduates and our students who are going to have a lot of fun this summer, make sure they're buckling up and obeying the speed limits and following the rules. Is that coming up too?
Yeah, that is also, starts with Memorial Day weekend, right, for the whole
summer. That's, thank you. All right. Okay, next we have item 4, agency reports. This is an opportunity for any of our partner agencies to speak to the committee. If any of our partners wish to provide updates during this time slot, please let Rachel and Eric know via email at least a week prior to the TSMO meeting. Today we have Jonathan Scarf for our regular report out from FDOT.
Good morning, Madam Chair, TSMO committee members. We're on the same wavelength this morning, so I have some information for you.
Oh, good.
So I did want to just remind everybody, we held our Central Florida Safety Summit on May 8th at Lavender on the Lake, and that's our annual event celebrating and spreading awareness of efforts made by local governments, transportation organizations, law enforcement, and advocacy groups in the area. I did want to point out there were numerous award winners from the 3-county area. First, Metro Plan received the Outreach Award for some of their safety efforts. The individual award went to Seminole County Commissioner Bob Delary, who's also a Metro Plan Orlando board member. And then the Community Award went to Osceola County. So congratulations to everyone that has been doing a lot of work over the past year with our safety summit. So May, as the chair was just speaking about, May marked Youth Traffic Safety Month. Again, this is a reminder that young people experience our transportation system in many ways: walking to school, riding bikes, traveling with others, or getting behind the wheel for the first time. As daily routines change with the onset of summer, more young drivers end up on Florida's roads, going to the beach, visiting friends, as well as commuting to summer jobs. So just a couple of stats for you. As of January of this year, Florida had nearly 940,000 licensed drivers between the ages of 15 and 19. And then that represents 1 out of 20 drivers on the road. And in 2025, Florida teen drivers were involved in 8.5% of total traffic fatalities and 11.5% of total crashes. So again, we're kicking off, make sure we're informing our youth. And just with our projects, you have your full construction report within your packets. I just like to point out a couple of projects that started recently. First is State Road 423 from Kingswood Drive to Addison Street. This project will conduct pedestrian safety improvements along State Road 423. Intersection improvements will include new crosswalks, updated pedestrian signals, and yield to pedestrian signs at Kingswood Drive and Addison Street. And then next, we recently began a resurfacing project, Sand Lake Road, also State Road 482, from Orange Blossom Trail to South Orange Avenue. And this is a resurfacing project that will rehabilitate and restore the asphalt. Pending questions, my information is there. Always, in between committees, if you have any department-related questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll try to get the ball rolling in the right direction. And that concludes my update.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to item 5, roll call. Rachel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If members can please remember to turn on their microphone before responding, respond with here or present, and then mute your microphone. Doig for Barden,
Present.
Boswell,
Present.
Cologne,
Present.
Crandell,
Here.
De La Chaise,
Present.
Castellero for LSR,
Present.
Elliott Moore,
Present.
Gordon,
Present.
Henry,
Here.
Hibbert,
Here.
Horn,
Here.
Jameson,
Here.
Lofaso,
Present.
McGrath,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Mendenhall, Mercado Vasquez,
Here.
Nezha,
Here.
Owens,
Present.
Price,
Here.
Pullum,
Here.
Mahisam for Sadler,
Present.
Sanders,
Here.
Senerins,
Here.
Singh,
Here.
Kintner for Smith,
Here.
Douglas for Wetzel, Malone for Williams,
Present.
Womack,
Present.
Yeager,
Present.
Yeargain.
Here.
Madam Chair, that concludes the roll call. We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Rachel. We'll now hear public comments on the action items. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. If any members of the public wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll send you a prompt to unmute your mic. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
No hands raised online.
Do we have any members of the public attending in person?
No comments received.
Are there any written comments that were submitted before the meeting?
None.
All right, thank you. We have one action item today, a reminder for members to please use their microphone and state their name when making or seconding a motion. All right, this would be the approval of the April 24th TSMO meeting minutes, which are at section 1 in your agenda packet. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve? Okay. And is there a second?
Second, Ramon Centerins.
Is there any discussion? It has been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, the motion passes. We have one presentation. We'll hold questions until the presentation ends. And it is on Signal 4 crash database from Dr. Eli Valeri. All right, excuse me. And you have the floor, Dr. Valeri.
Thank you. I'm also here with Dr. Shu, who's online. Thank you for having us back. It's always a pleasure to come back here and talk to you about the efforts that we're doing and the advancement that we're doing on this area. So as most of you know about Signal 4 Analytics, it's a statewide system that contains crash data and can do analysis and reporting. It is the system of record at the Florida Department of Transportation for the safety section. We've been working specifically more closely with the Metro Plan Orlando, with you all, to improve the crash data and to provide support about the crash data and information on the Metro Plan Orlando area. In a nutshell, Signal 4 Analytics is designed to improve accessibility and utilization of crash data, as well as the related analysis and reporting. So today I want to specifically talk a little bit about the crash data location accuracy, that is where the crashes are, and then a little bit to inform you about the timeliness of the data. So I will do a quick refresher on how the data gets in the system, that makes it available to all of you. How the geolocation is done, there's a couple of methods, compare them, and then have some concluding remarks. So as you know, for each crash, a police crash report is required to be written. So, and that's where everything starts, right? The data quality and the timeliness start from that report. So once the police officer fill out their report, and the report is reviewed at the agency, law enforcement agency level, it's then transmitted to the Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicle, which is the official statewide repository. The next day, the data that's received by that department comes to Signal 4 Analytics electronically. So specifically, as part of the crash report, we have the location information, which is made up of up to 12 different data elements. And as you can see, is the city, county, the street, intersecting street, the latitude, longitude, and so on. The challenge with this is that this information is traditionally entered in a crash report form, independent of each other. However, all that information, those 12 data elements, must match one single point on the map, right? The crash occurred wherever the crash occurred, and is supposed to be the location of the first harmful event. Because the way that this information is entered and entered independently of each other, that's a little bit problematic, right? If one of these data elements it's missing or it's ambiguous, then the computer has a hard time figuring out that point, because traditionally the police crash reports do not provide point location data, right? It's all in text. So as part of the efforts that we've been doing now for 10 years is the development of this Signal 4 geolocation tool. This is available to law enforcement agencies throughout Florida and, of course, in the Metro Plan Orlando area. That changes that process. So instead of having the officers enter those 12 data elements on the screen, they're given a map while they're filling out the crash report, and they drop a pin on the map at the location of the crash, right? They are on site, they are there to report the crash, so they have the best information at hand at that time. So in a way, this tool kind of reverses the traditional process, right? You start with a point on the map, and then the tool returns the rest of the data elements, those 12 data elements, back to the officer. And you can see the arrow going the other way around to where from the point the information on the crash report is filled out automatically by retrieving the data from the system. The system contains roadway data from Florida Department of Transportation. It's statewide and contains all roads, not only DOT roads, but all local roads. And that's where that is the source for that information. I should point out that in addition to what we just showed, geolocation accomplishes more than that. In addition to returning the point and those 12 data elements, it returns some other technical information behind the scenes. I know this slide's a little gets too much in the weed, but it's important to understand that for all of us that ultimately need the data to do our job, to improve safety and so on, we do need to run queries and do analytics. And this information, such as the roadway ID or the segment ID and distances and so on, is required to be able to support analytics and reporting. The second part of that tool that we've developed that has gone now in operation about 3 years ago is a diagramming tool. This is a tool that's available to law enforcement when they get to the portion of diagramming the crash report. This tool it builds on that location they place at the beginning as they fill out the crash report. And then when they get to the end, after they fill out all the rest of the information on the crash report, this tool builds the diagram for them in a most part, right? The tool is georeferenced and in scale, so the diagram is on top of the aerial photography. That way, all the measurements and the site is as it is in reality, rather than being schematic. The tool operates by putting the diagram together using the information already in the crash report. So then we have match what they say in the crash report with what's on the diagram. And then finally is automatically generated. The tool has some options to make for the officers to manually make changes, and we encourage that to finalize it. But the advantage of it is that it saves time, plus the information is much more accurate. In addition, provide context for that crash location point, right? So now you have corroborating information, if you will, that when you get that point where it is, you can also see that the diagram and the vehicles and the direction of the vehicles match that, which is something that it's not very common. It's relatively unique. This is something that we're doing in Florida, and has gotten really good reception as an innovation also nationwide. So what's the current status then? What's going on with the location process for the Metroplan Orlando area? So the tool currently is in operation. It's in use it gets used by about 50% of the crashes. And that is progress. The number, I wish the number was bigger, and the goal is to obviously take it to a much higher number. But compared to a few years back, this is progress. And this is something that could be more relevant and useful to information to share. As you know, police agencies use what's called eCrash, or stands for electronic crash, which is the software they use to fill out the crash report. They all do that. In the Metroplan Orlando area, there are 3 eCrash systems. Trax is the one that based at FSU, and it's funded by the state. The other 2, SmartCop and Central Square, are private system. So currently in the Metroplan area, all the 19 Trax agencies are using that geolocation and diagramming tool that I mentioned. On the SmartCop side, 4 out of 5 are using it. And then Central Square is not using it yet. I'll talk to the end what we could do about this. So basically, the other 50% of the crashes that are not mapped by the officers are mapped by an automated system using computer, using what's called address geocoding. It's automated, it's not supervised. That's how we get 100% of the crashes to geolocate. So the questions are, since we have this tools and we have these options, how accurate are the crash locations that you look at on the screen when you go in Signal 4 Analytics and run a query? How much confidence should we have into that? And then second, how timely is the data, right? We did a review to answer this question, of the crashes on the Metroplan Orlando area for years 2023 to 2025. That was about total 200 crashes. So we reviewed about 57% of them, so over 117,000 crashes or so. The review looked at how close was the crash to where it was supposed to be The Florida Department of Transportation uses a tool that we've developed to review these crashes manually by their editors, because they add additional attribution that comes from the DOT. So as part of their adding value and verification process, they also look at the location, and those are the crashes that we looked at. So here's what we found. 50% of the crashes, I said, are geolocated by the computer. The other 50, the 14% of them use only the geolocation tool. The other 36% used the geolocation tool plus the diagramming tool. So that's the distribution. And here's the findings. You can see that the computer, the ones that were geolocated using an automated method, using the computer, had an only 38% success rate, right? The difference is not reliable. So you're talking about 62% of that 50% that basically has to be reviewed manually by a human being to be able to establish where that location is. For those that did use the tool, 93% that used just the geolocation tool were accurate, right? And then the difference that used both geolocation and diagramming tool were 98% accurate. So that you could see the value of these tools in improving that accuracy. By the way, for the other 62% of that computer section, they are reviewed manually by students and staff at the University of Florida, because we work with MetroPlan we've been working for many years to be able to then manually geolocate. So the data that you see in the system, it is still mapped, but a portion of those is due to a manual effort. And the goal is to get away from that, right? The goal is to get this 98% to 99.9%, right? And then eventually eliminate the computer automated method altogether. From the data timeliness perspective, we found that first, as you know, the process is a crash occur, a police officer is dispatched, they arrive on scene, they spend some time on scene to work the scene, and then at some point they start writing the crash report. Once they finish the crash report, it gets reviewed by supervisors and so on, and then sometimes it's sent directly to HSMV, sometimes sit at the agency. They have 10 days to basically send a crash report by statute to the state. So eventually it makes it into Signal 4 analytics from the moment that the crash occurs. So what you see in this table is that in the first column we have the collection of crashes that use just the Signal 4 geolocation, use Signal 4 geolocation and diagram, and the third one is those that didn't use either one of them, and they were treated by the computer. So you can see duration of on scene for these groups of crashes. And then you can see how long data takes to get into Signal 4 analytics. So we wanted to highlight this, that in instances when officers use these tools, you could see that that's the fastest that it gets in the system. Now, I should point out that the time that the officer spends to fill out the crash report is not the driving factor on this timeline, right? Because then the supervisor has to look at it, and then there's technical processes that they have to follow to eventually send those crashes electronically to the HSMV. However, we see a clear difference in terms of the time that ultimately the data get into the system, right? So that is very encouraging finding that we saw. So, in conclusion, what we would like to share with you is that based on the evidence that we showed, is that the use of these tools provide the highest geolocation accuracy. It does shorten the time for law enforcement to fill out a crash report, especially the diagram, because it more or less builds the diagram for them. In average, about from our testing early on, it's about 30 seconds to build a diagram. Now that's some instances they could take longer. Some instances, simple crashes like rear end crashes and so on could take less, even less, right? Because it's constructed automatically. The bottom line, for all of us, is that we're getting better data quality and more timely data to the end users to use to support safety. So what can we do with this information? We should continue to raise awareness about the availability of these tools. They are, and as we do that, which we've been doing, but I think this is an opportunity for the committee to know more about this and to highlight the following benefit. From the individual officer perspective, it saves them time, right? They have to respond to a lot of events, and then the time they can be spending filling out a crash report can be used to save somebody's life, if you will, right? So that's very important, and they very much appreciate that. Second is no cost to agencies. So say for these agencies that are not using it, they really it costs nothing to them. Obviously, these are tools that the state's supporting, but it's no cost to the agency, and then improves the data also for the agencies, right? Because they do analysis with their own crash data, so the data is not only good for the practitioner and the research community, but it's also useful for the agencies themselves. So if you think about it, the use of these tools is a win-win all around. And we hope that we can start to see, what's missing. And I'm going to go to this slide here so I can leave you with this. So on the 40%, 41% section there that smart cops provide, the one agency that it's still missing is FHP, and that's why that section is so big, because FHP reports lots of data. We've been in discussion with FHP, and we're continuing those discussions. They're going well. The challenge with FHP is a much bigger agency, so when they're making decisions how to change their processes, it's a much bigger decision, but they are received this in a positive way. And then we're looking at methods, how can this geolocation diagram be used without creating major disruption to their processes. So the idea is to adopt them so that they seamlessly get integrated in their processes. They use SmartCop. The tool is available in SmartCop, so it's a matter of continue to look into that to achieve that integration. And then finally, Central Square has two agencies in the Metro Plan Orlando. We've been in discussion with Central Square. Agencies do like the tool, right? If you get a chance to ever talk to any law enforcement officer that write crashes and use the Signal 4 analytics, especially the diagram, don't take, don't take my word for it, but if you talk to them, then you will see how enthusiastic they are about it. Central Square is on board. They are making changes to their software, so they said that it's just a matter of time. And we expect they've revamping their whole software, so they really don't have the time to try to integrate geolocation in the diagrams. But the hope is that by the end of this year, they will start looking at it. So, so we're hopeful that eventually, then this chart will all be green, and then we can have more confidence in the accuracy and timeliness of the crash data. Thank you. Go to my email in case there is any questions, or you want to reach out to me, or if you have any general question about Signal 4, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Valeri. Any questions?
Yes, I do have a question. Madam
Yes.
Chair. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Belleri. I know that you and I, we
Good
had
to
a
see you.
conversation probably about a year and a half ago, and we were looking at the accuracy of the data. So there was a third-party software, Citian, I believe, that they were using your data and trying to do some AI corrections. So definitely this approach now with the geolocation and also with the diagrams, it is a game changer for the accuracy. My question, it goes beyond what you are representing. Of course, we want to prevent crashes just on the safety moment, and we are looking that the younger population, unfortunately, perhaps they do not have the experience or sometimes the sensibility to assess some potential dangers. So in Orange County, we started a conversation regarding micromobility. And we know that the first question that we were asked by the commissioners is, well, go to Signal 4 and get some data on crashes. And unfortunately, it wasn't represented
They're
there
not there.
for many, many factors. So we engaged with the sheriff office, we engaged with the medical experts and the ERs and trying to get that data. So my question, and perhaps it's philosophical, but in the future, we know that they modify these devices to go sometimes at 40, 50, 60 miles per hour, and sometimes people do not wear the helmets. They are also using sidewalks and navigating close to other modes of transportation, especially pedestrians. So my question is, anticipating this, because this is becoming an epidemic, what can we do to make sure that perhaps also as part of Signal 4 that we use it? Is there a way for us to collect this data afterwards or go to the places where it happens? So at least it is reflected and we will have some additional ideas as we're looking at the crashes and trying to come up with safety countermeasures.
Excellent question, Humberto. I'm glad that you brought this up. It's been in discussion quite a bit recently. The e-scooter, e-bike, it's a major concern. And you're right. If you go in Signal 4 and say, show me all the crashes that involved e-bikes or e-scooters, there isn't a clean way right now to get them. So we've been discussing with both DOT and HSMV, and I'll give you the long term and then the short term. The long term is that Florida crash form, the last time that was reviewed was 2010. So it's old now, right? Things have changed in transportation. So they are looking into reviewing it. The timeline is a little unclear because they have a federal grant that will assist in modernizing the crash record, including the form at the state level, but hopefully within the next 5 years. That when that form is revised, HSMV has been going into attending a number of committees around the state, like this one here, but especially with the Bike Ped Coalition and so on, and are getting a lot of feedback. So they are planning to address this so that when a crash report is written, there's clarity and that event is captured, whether it involved an e-bike, whether it involved a e-scooter, these kind of newer modes of transportation. So we don't know when that's going to happen. In the meantime, we expect, luckily, to soon, I would say probably a matter of weeks, to actually expose a filter that will allow users to select crashes that involved e-bikes or e-scooters in the current database. And the way that's happening is, as you all know, each crash report has that narrative section. Unable to capture whether it was an e-bike or e-scooter in the structure portion of the report, right? That has all the check boxes in the pick list. In the narrative, the officer usually write about that. It was an e-bike, e-scooter. It's a little challenging to, unless you read every single crash report, it's a little challenging to analyze and then to extract this information. But we've worked with the HSMV. They have an analyst there, and he's done some analysis and established basically a good way to flag those records. So just the other day, I wrote to him an email that we reviewed their method, and their method looks good. So now it's a matter of kind of put this in operation. So we expect that that analysis will be run for 10 years of data from January 1st, 2014 to present. And then we will add 2 additional fields into Signal 4 analytics. One would say is e-bike and the other is e-scooter, and they will be added in so that, and the goal is to eventually try to update that on a weekly basis. So that's where we are. This is just a matter of time. And when that is in place, I will let MetroPlan folks know about it, and they can broadcast that to the rest of the MetroPlan, to you all, about that data. So so it's coming. So good news, I guess. Sorry, it was a little long answer to get into that, but I'm very excited about this, and so are a lot of people, because it's been a challenge and a growing challenge. So.
That is great news. Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry. Which one
Daniel.
did you want first? Sorry.
Daniel.
Yeah, I had a quick question. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you very much for the presentation. The computer-generated location that you're referring to, do you think that there's any possibility of implementing with something like any alley data that comes in via a 911 call, or is that specifically data that has to be entered on a crash report? In terms of accuracy for things like along the interstate or the turnpike, where you're not near an intersection or an address, how is your computer generating that location? I can appreciate the challenge of getting that data point.
So it's all based on that's a good point, and this is something that's been a challenge for many years, and we have looked at this. I've written papers about it and so on. We can only operate on what the officer writes on the crash report, right? And that information is described with an on-street where the crash occurred. If it's an intersection, they describe the intersecting street, which is fine for most urban areas, even some rural areas. The second way that they describe it is by using the on-street and the distance from an intersecting street. And the third way, if it's say on Florida Turnpike, where the nearest intersection, I don't know, there isn't one, right? And in that case, the FHP typically use the distance from a mile marker. So all these pieces we used a tiered approach that identify the type of the address and then tries to use the right method for that type. This is kind of a national problem because everybody has this problem, and even with AI methods and so on, that location can be a little tricky. So we've concluded many years ago, and it's kind of recognized nationally, that's the best way is to have the officer place the point on the map. Once they do, no matter where they are, right? Even somewhere on the turnpike where there is really not a good reference, they would capture the on-street and the latitude, longitude, because the tool places the point on a georeference map, and that's the problem solved.
Sure.
So the 911 is a very good point. We did a research project with DOT District 5 to explore this on how to, it was more specifically for DOT that responds to various events on the highway, but the process is the same. And we try to get to see if there was a way to get the data from 911. The 911 data go eventually to dispatch. And so all these systems do have that data internally, but unfortunately is not exposed to the crash report. That's the only information that we have. So that research project with the District 5 concluded that we really need a better system to be able to propagate that information from the dispatch to these crash reports and then transmit it into an industry standard method using HTTP and so on, to be able to benefit from it. Unfortunately, there has not been any further progress on it, but the technology is there, and it's just a matter of that's where the organizational aspects of it gets in the way, because you've got different agencies, different vendors, which is one of the challenges that we had. So that's the problem. But yeah, all theoretically, that's all possible, and I think it needs to be pursued.
Sure. I am the GIS administrator for the city of Winter Garden. A big part of my role is administering the CAD. So
There you go.
So I just wondered if the work is already being done by a dispatcher or by getting the call location with some of the next gen 911
It is.
systems, if that might help.
Absolutely. And I think what I would suggest is, if you talk to the law enforcement, Winter Garden PD, is to encourage them to their vendor is SmartCop, and they are now using geolocation. So Winter Garden, going forward, you should see all the crashes mapped with diagrams. But you can encourage them to propagate the CAD data. When the officer is dispatched on site, they have the CAD data. So just propagate that over to the crash forum. And that will, because the officer needs to go where they're going, needs to know, right? So they do have a latitude, longitude where they're going to. I think that would be very helpful and will speed things up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We'll do Nabil and then Gary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Doctor. We have seen here at MetroPlan a number of presentation regarding incident prediction, which is, crash risk identification in real time. Would it be possible for this program to say identify intersection locations that are likely to experience crashes?
That's a good question. There is in Signal 4, so the traditional approach is to look at a lot of data, right? Historic data, and using stats to predict, the dangerous intersection. So that's predictive analysis, and there is the highway safety manual at the federal level that has all the formulas and so on. In Signal 4, there is a section which could probably be a topic of another presentation in the future, that's called network screening, right? One of the options on the side. So if you go there, there are two options: historic screening and predictive network screening. So the predictive network screening is designed to do just that, not real time, right? But it's basically with the data that it has. We run that analysis now in coordination with DOT once a year. And I think it's up to date till 2024, right? So it basically, if we go there and right now and say, show me the top 5 intersections in MetroPlan Orlando based on a predictive approach, it will tell you. All right, so that's available. And I would encourage, for those of you that are interested and has that need, to look at the result and see if they are not convincing. That would be a great help for us and for DOT, right? Because then we would work with them to make adjustments and so on, but we would definitely love the feedback. So this feature is there. I would be curious to know how it works for you.
All right, thank you.
Of course.
All right, Gary.
So currently, the Signal 4 has the 60-day hold on releasing the records. I was just curious if you have any foresight on that ever changing, or is that going to be a permanent thing forever?
I'm wondering when that question was going to come up. That's the Achilles heel, right? Because I'm talking about the timeliness of the data, getting the data there quickly, and then you guys have to wait 2 months to see them. So we've been, so you know about the Florida TRCC, Traffic Records Coordinating Committee, right? So it's a committee with representatives from various agencies like DOT, HSMV, FHP, Department of Health, and it needs to be in place because to manage federal funds allocated specifically to improve traffic records. So the committee is aware of this because it's making a lot of effort to improve access to the data, and yet we have this limitation now, right? So one approach is to get over that, is to do an MOU with the Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicle. So there is a way, right? And to indicate why do you need access of the data that's current rather than that's 2 months old. And there is a process for that. Obviously, it's a legal kind of document, so legal needs to be improved in writing and sending it there, their legal review. DOT does have one. So if you're DOT, if you have a DOT email or a DOT consultant working on a project, currently you can see the data that were loaded in Signal 4 yesterday. All right. Others cannot, even law enforcement agencies that are authors of the data. That's a little strange. And what's even more strange is the fact that while you cannot get raw data, right, do a query and see the data, you can actually pull up a police crash report that was loaded in the system yesterday. So you do have access to individual police crash reports. If you knew the HSMV report number, what you're searching for, you could go in there, put the number, it will come up, right? So if you learn that from a local agency or like a fatal bad case or so on, that's allowed. But doing a query to see the raw data, which by the way is de-identified, has no PII, personal identifiable information in it, that's not allowed. There is really no clarity why the law was written that way, but it's in the statute. So TRCC has had discussions to be able to revisit that and bring that back the way it was for many, many years. This was changed 3 years ago. So I'm sorry, I don't have any good insights other than to continue to bring this up with HSMV to be able to allow professionals like yourselves, practitioners and researchers to have access to this information in a more timely fashion. We, on our end, are doing something. We have proposed to HSMV to de-identify the information on the fly. That is, as you pull up a crash report, we would de-identify it immediately using technology so that when it's up on the screen, the PII is not there. This, we hope, will be an encouragement for HSMV to loosen that requirement because now the PII is protected, and that's their concern. As you all know, the data is also a source for insurance companies and other private parties, and there's concerns of leaking PII and so on. So it's has another dimension, which makes it challenging. But I think the redaction that we're proposing, and we're going to implement it, it's a task in the work scope with the TRCC. May ultimately make that point mute, that like, why are you, protecting this data where it's all protected already by the technology? So keeping our fingers crossed.
Okay. Yes, Dalita.
Thank you. So going back to the intersection question, I know that the network screening tool is available. And then we have different ways of pulling data based on roadway IDs, mileposts, different things like that. Is there an easier way to pull up intersection crash data without creating the boundaries, which is the current practice that I know, but is there an easier way to pull intersection data?
You mean more than one intersection at the time?
Well, it could be one intersection or yes, multiple intersections.
So currently in the system under street, there is where there is the option to select the roadway. There is an option to select intersection.
Okay,
It's in the pick list. And then once you select that intersection, you can then search by it, or you can just zoom the map to the area where the intersection is, and then you can click on it.
okay,
So then you can run the query and it'll pull the data associated with that intersection. Beyond that, if you wanted to say, give me all the intersection along a corridor, you're doing a study or an area.
Okay.
Currently, there isn't a way. This has been requested multiple times, and it is in our work scope to add that capability. So we're working on it. And that's a feature that I believe you will see at some point. I don't have a timeline yet because there's things that have to do with data protection and data processing that we get asked to do all the time, but it's coming. So you'll be able to say, give me all the intersection along this corridor or in this geographic area, which you can also digitize. And if there is any other method on how you want that, like for example, if you have a list of intersections, so for the GIS guy here, if you already have a list of intersections, say, I'm going to load these, we are looking into supporting that as well. So if you have your GIS layer that has a bunch of intersection, you can load that up, and then we would read all those and then return all the crashes that match those intersections. So we're looking at various methods on how can we make that available.
thank you. And then another question. So whenever you download a crash report and we get a public service request, how are those usually handled? Because the statutes they're a little bit ambiguous, I think, where it talks about, or it's ambiguous in the fact that you have to request crash reports from FLHSMV. But if we have it downloaded and it's
it's there. Yeah. So the public request, is that for a specific crash report or is that for statistics on a given area for crash data statistics?
For both.
For both.
Yes.
For the statistics, you should be fine because that's why the data is there. So as a public agency, you're doing the analysis and then you put together these numbers and you can share. I guess that's one of the duties, I think, of the government, to share information with the citizens. And the citizens are not given direct access to Signal 4, right? Anytime we get that request or from the press, we direct them to HSMV because they are the official, by law, agency that is supposed to store, take care, and distribute that information. For individual crash reports, it's a little more tricky because HSMV, as you know, has a site where they sell police crash reports, right? FloridaBikeCrash.com or something like that. And then you have to be one of the parties in the crash or a lawyer for them, or there's like 12 different reasons on why you're allowed to. So I think that probably you ought to look into that. Like, what are the conditions? And if the person, the citizen, qualify, then you could consider sharing it. But I would suggest that if you have any case like this, to write to HSMV or write to me, and then I'll forward it to them. That's my email right there. And they can provide you more precise guidance. I know what HSMV will say is that, if they qualify, they can just download and purchase the report, $10, $12 per report. And it's all available. But not like anybody can get them, right? You need to meet those criteria that's in the statute. So that's the challenge with that. It's a little tricky.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Brian?
Thank you so
Hi,
much,
Brian.
Dr. Vigilary. I really appreciate your passion for this program. I go back to a time where none of this was available, and you had to wait a very long time to get the reports. So this is just makes all the difference in the world.
Thank you.
The crash location accuracy is critically important. I know you know that, and you're working hard to do that as accurately as possible. We're literally putting countermeasures and accommodations based off of that. So the more accurate is better. I wanted to go back to the timeline, which you said that the extraction of the micromobility information is coming. You said a couple of weeks, you said?
I would say more like so. It will depend on how long HSMV is going to take to run the analysis for all those years, right? So they did a test for a couple of years and the results look good. So they just need to run it for all those years. So I would say they probably take a little bit of time. 2 weeks, no, it'd be very ambitious. But I would say probably, I would say 6 weeks, maybe 6 to 8, just to be realistic. We need to do some work on our end. Once the data arrive, and we need to also improve the user interface to expose the filters so that then the data can be available.
So what you're saying is that we will be able to query that information through Signal 4
Yes.
within that period of time. Fantastic.
Yeah,
That's just
yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. I think the 8 weeks should be the ceiling.
Even if it was longer than that, it's better than 5 years. Okay.
Or
I wouldn't
never.
be here in 5 years.
Or having to read hundreds and hundreds of crash reports so you can find the 5 or the 10 that are relevant. So yeah, definitely. And Dr. Shu is here with me on Zoom. I'm sure she's taking notes that we're looking at 8 weeks.
And that's fine. I've got a staff member, Lauren Torres, who's spearheading the micromobility for Orange County. And there's going to be additional briefings at our board coming up. And I'd love for her to contact you and work very closely with you on this as we chart our path through this very difficult time.
But yes, by all means. And I think that we will probably send out an announcement when it's in place so everybody is aware that this information is now there. And I would love to hear any feedback in terms of the quality. How good is it, right? Because it's, again, mining those narratives and it's trying to extract the information. Is not a clean data field. So in some instances, that might not be 100% accurate. So if you all see anything like that, I'd definitely like to hear.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, any other questions? All right, I have one, Dr. Valeri. Within your presentation, you had a little bit of a call to action for us in raising awareness for these tools. And my takeaway was that the folks using tracks, no need to reach out to them. With the Smart Cop, it's only FHP. It sounds like you're already working with them.
Yes.
So what agencies use Central Square? Like, how do we know, if we need to?
I'm looking at that guy.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's Osceola County, the two ones. I remember you from last time, right?
St. Cloud.
Yes, City of St. Cloud.
St.
Okay.
Cloud, yeah.
Okay.
So they use Central Square. So it's even if they'd like to use it, Central Square, it's up to Central Square because they need to integrate it. The integration, it's relatively simple. And we can work with them to make that to make that happen, but it's up to them. And I was told to reach out to them by the end of this year to see if they would be ready to start integrating. However, the way that you all can help is by reaching back to the agencies and saying that, you got to look at this tool because here's the benefit that it has. It's no cost to you, and kind of bring it up to Central Square that we needed, because otherwise it's these vendors always say, yes, we could do this, but it depends how well is prioritized, right? So I think bringing it up to accelerate that effort would be beneficial for sure, because once they hear it from St. Clouds and 2 agencies here, and then from some agencies in South Florida and from some other agencies in other areas, then it becomes, a more pressing need for them to integrate this.
Okay, great. Anything I can do to help, Cameron? We'll go together on that. All right. Any other questions for Dr. Valeri? Great discussion. Fantastic. All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
All right. So we have 3 common presentations with the upcoming TAC meeting that's right after this. So for those of you who are available, we encourage you to stay to view those presentations and hear what those presenters have to say. They are a presentation on the draft tip, the presentation on draft 2026 PPL, and a status update from Florida's Turnpike Enterprise. All right, there are several items in the general information section of our agenda packet for your review under section 3. There's a list of upcoming meetings also in your agenda, and some notable meetings are the Metro Plan Orlando Board will meet on June 10th, and the next TSMO meeting will be June 26th at our normal time of 8:30 a.m. Are there any final comments from our members? Okay, this is our final public comment opportunity. If any members of the public wish to comment, please use the raise hand function and you'll be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll unmute your mic. After you are recognized, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comment to 2 minutes or less. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
No hands raised online.
All right, any members of the public attending in person who would like to make a comment?
No comments received.
And any written comments? We already covered that. I don't think so.
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. At this time, if there's no further business, we stand adjourned at 9:37. Thank you.